What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dean, aka the Blue Crusader, and welcome back for another video on Apex Legends. Now today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you 35 different tips on how you can actually improve on Apex Legends. Some of these tips are going to be about communication, some of them are going to be about movement, aiming, squad, teaming and compositions, and so many different things that will actually improve your gameplay in this game. There's tips in here for everyone, and a few tips guaranteed that a lot of you guys might have looked over or might not actually know about in the game. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So the first tip is land together, but loot different buildings, otherwise you won't be able to find loot. So what I mean by this is when you land, it's okay to kind of split up a little bit when you do land on the primary drop or location. For an example, if you drop in a town, you can split off to different buildings. If you loot the same building, most of the time you're going to have to share the loot, and in most small buildings you're only going to find one weapon or two, and most of them won't be very good. Now you don't want to loot the same buildings because otherwise you'll be splitting that loot with your squad. And also alternatively, if a lot of people do drop, if one of your teammates doesn't have a weapon because you actually shared the same building, then you're probably going to lose an engagement or fight. Now the next tip is also a drop-in tip. Now when you're actually reaching the drop-in point with your squad, it's okay to actually split off from your team to reach these different buildings we mentioned before, obviously to get additional loot. It's not so bad, but don't be one of those guys who splits off completely and drops in a whole different town or location. Make sure you're still dropping with your squad, but you can split off at the last few seconds just to kind of steer your own landing, because you don't want to drop on the same building. And you can also do this to kind of reach vantage points if you already see people on the ground from other teams. Now the third tip is actually talking about loot order. Now there's a specific loot order you should be adhering to if you want to kind of jumpstart yourself in the game. Now in a lot of different battle royales, for an example H1Z1, what you do is you get an AR, which is an assault rifle, and a helmet, and then you dive straight into combat. But with Apex Legends, what you want to do is you want to pick up a weapon first, and then you want to look for the armor and helmet immediately second. This is so you obviously do have protection in a fight against other people, but you also do have a weapon to defend yourself. Now the next actual tip is taking a shotgun. Now a lot of people don't want to take a shotgun because there's a high risk to high reward of using it and getting into close engagements, but I found that playing Apex since the release, you do get into a lot of shotgun situations, and on games there's always those people that play so aggressive and push you all the time and try and get in shotgun fights to get easy kills on you. Now I'm not great with shotguns in games, I am still trying to practice and get better, but I'd recommend taking the Peacekeeper or the EV8 because it's obviously semi-auto and pretty noob friendly for people like me who can't always hit every single shot. So make sure you do have that. Sometimes I will take a wingman and a rifle, but mostly I do find myself in shotgun fights a lot and I can't protect myself if I take loadouts like that. So do come prepared and use a shotgun so you don't lose rushing from the enemy. Ammo is also key. If you do have a low end weapon, especially something like an alternator or any of the low power SMGs, then ammo is going to be a huge priority for you, because spraying with something like an alternator, you're not going to get enough damage output or damage on the enemy, and you'll lose ammo really quickly. Obviously an SMG should be just used to kind of spray a few shots and then switch back to your primary, but most of the time when you drop in, this is going to be the kind of low tier loot you're going to get, and you're not going to get anything else. So do make sure that you using it as a secondary weapon or trying to get the ammo so you can kind of defend yourself on the drop. You want to utilize the ping system in the game. A lot of people love Apex mainly because it's so easy to communicate with your teammates. The ping system in this game is something which I really just want in every single game. I find myself playing other games and I try to use the ping system in them, and then I wonder why I can't use it, and then I realize, okay, I've been playing too much Apex. But if you're one of those players who just refuses to use the microphone, which, no offense, but those type of people are pretty insufferable, and it's 2019 at this point, so what are you doing without a mic? But if you can't use the mic, make sure to use the ping system in game. You can learn to use this in the tutorial or trainer mode, but you can also communicate through the chat. But make sure you ping what you're doing, where you're going, where the loot's going to be, what loot you actually need, because you can ping what ammo you need in your inventory. Just make sure you're using it and the chat to interact with your teammates. Don't be silent all game and then rage at the end, because your team isn't going to be able to help you if they don't know what you're doing. Text to speech can also be a useful thing to use. Now this isn't going to be for everybody, but on PC, because I don't think you can do it on consoles, you can actually enable text to speech, which basically means that the chat from your teammates plays through a computer voice, so you don't really need to read your messages. There's not too much to say about this, but it's just kind of an ease of use sort of thing, so instead of reading the chat, I guess you're just going to hear it through a sound so you can focus more on the game. Personally for me, it's not really something I'd like to use, but I know a few people that use it and it's kind of helpful. It also might be helpful for those of you who speak other languages and can kind of understand English, but it's easier to hear it in an audio form, so it might be something to consider. Next up, you want to practice your aim for more headshots. So I actually made a video on this. You can check out my aim guide. I will put it in the description below for a full guide on aiming, but basically you can use aim training maps, training simulator games, etc. Just kind of practice your aim in the training mode on the targets. You can practice your reaction time, bullet lead, bullet drop, and you can use every single gun in the game, even the legendary weapons. I would mainly utilize the Apex training mode because it has the exact values for the bullet drop, bullet lead, and the damage values in game, so it is better than alternatively using aim training simulators, but I would recommend kind of using a bit of both. If you are still struggling with your aim, I will leave my aim guide video tutorial in the description because a lot of people have found that useful. But with good aim comes learning the bullet drop. Now this is a primary thing you need to do, because unlike Call of Duty titles, because we're talking about Apex here, which is a first person shooter, Apex has a tiny amount of bullet drop, so it doesn't have much bullet drop, but this means that the tiny amount of drop means that you have to slightly aim above the target at ranges, but you also need to practice the bullet lead by firing slightly in front of an enemy so they actually move into the shot, because it's not going to be instant hits like in Call of Duty, so you do need to practice. It's more realistic in this game in terms of how bullets travel and such, so you do have to practice this, but you can actually do this in the aiming mode too, because there's actually long range and mid range moving targets that you can actually practice this on. Now the next tip is damage markers are actually color coded. Now you need to learn the actual color codes of these because headshot damage is highlighted in yellow numbers specifically, whereas the actual body damage is based on the colors of the shield quality they actually have. So obviously the normal item quality is grey, blue and purple, or if the values appear in red, this basically means that they have no shield. So obviously if you get 50 damage in red, it means that they're half HP. The next one is don't neglect your abilities. Each legend has a unique kit and a set of abilities that can help your team in and out of combat. Obviously I'm not going to talk about specifics because there's so many legends to cover, but I will do a set of guides on how to play each legend. Currently I'm only playing Pathfinder and Wraith, so I might release guides on these two characters, but I will need to practice the other characters to obviously have opinions on them. But don't neglect your abilities, use them. For an example, Wraith, you can use your portal to actually get in and out of fights, and your whole team can use it, but you need to beware that obviously the enemies can enter the portals as well. The Q makes you untargetable and you can get in and out of fights as well, so these spells from that character are obviously for utility, but don't be afraid to use them. If you're playing someone like Bloodhunt, you can use your ability to scan for buildings, and it's basically like a wall hack, but you're not going to get banned for it because it's obviously a legit mechanic in the game, so it can be really useful to help your team in fights. The next one is something I see so many people doing, because this game can be so frustrating, because obviously not only can you recover people who have already died, which isn't such a bad thing, I actually like that, but when you down an enemy, you won't get the kill, or it won't be classed as a kill unless you wipe out the whole squad or finish them while they're downed. Don't actually focus on these downed enemies. I know you might be wanting to increase your kill count, but it's not really going to work out for you in the long run, and it's going to lose you a lot of squad fights. On Apex, you can't kill an enemy unless you finish them downed or the full squad, so focusing downed enemies in combat will distract you from the enemies who are not knocked and could get you killed. Now the next one's more of kind of, I guess, a quality of life tip or a movement tip, because sometimes on top of buildings, people who are playing Pathfinder for an example, who grapple to a building, when you actually kill them and they drop the loot, sometimes you can't get that loot, and sometimes loot spawns on top of awkward places. Now sometimes these awkward places you can't actually climb up them because the default climb height is too high in these positions to get up. Now there's a way around this. You can actually use doors to climb higher, because some roofs are too hard to reach from a standard wall climb, but a tip is to open a door from the inside so the door points to the outside angle, and then you can actually climb onto the edge of the door and jump up to the roof. This lets you actually reach higher places and make sure you get that loot. Especially I've been in a lot of circumstances, and I did see on Shroud stream where If there's golden or legendary loot, for example, on top of the roof and you can't reach it, this is a really good tip to make sure you don't miss out on it. So decision making is important. Don't always instant revive teammates. I know it's really tempting if your friend gets downed and you're lower on numbers and it might be a 2v3, but you can't always revive your teammates because it really depends if you're the one getting focused or your other squad mates. Be smart, because other smart players can use down teammates to use it to their advantage to actually bait you out of a fight. So if you're hiding behind cover and you need to revive someone, they'll use the down teammate to actually bait you out of the cover, or they may be pushing you and you need to actually take cover. So don't actually revive them all the time unless you know you can kind of use it in that situation. The next one is conserving shield cells. This is only going to work if you actually win a fight though, so it won't really work in other circumstances, or if you're obviously looting a different body bag or loot case. Now what I mean by this is that if there's enemy armor to loot, for an example, replace yours with a looted armor if it has more armor value than yours, to actually save using shield cells on your own after you win a fight. Because if the armor is either better than yours, or even if it's the same quality, it might still have more shield charge to it, and it's a lot better to replace yours with that one than waste all of the shield in your inventory, because you obviously can only carry a certain amount. The next is utilize mobility points. So there's a few different things on the map which kind of let you get around the map easily. Obviously you want to make sure you get into the zone, and you want to be able to get in and out of fights if you're in trouble. Now a good way for this is to use balloons to your advantage to get into the zone and move around the map to safe places. If you get shot and there's a balloon near you, you can kind of take that way out of the fight, but sometimes if they've got a good shot they can always knock you down from the balloon, but primarily you want to use these to actually get into the zone. Another really obvious tip which they tell you in the training mode, and what will be notified to you if you're actually in the zone or if the zone's coming, is you can just put away your weapons simply and it'll make you run a lot faster. Now this kind of goes hand in hand with either practicing your aim, practicing your decision making, and just generally practicing as all-round plays in the game. Don't avoid fights. If you're new or if you're improving, don't avoid fights or camp to the end. Remember, this game isn't PUBG, and your aim and decision making won't improve if you skip every chance to fight or do PvP. Now sometimes it can be hard because there's so many people out there with thousands of kills already, or streamers who will just play for 10 hours a day and kill you. It can be really frustrating. There is streamers, high kill people, cheaters, literally everything. Mostly people who just play loads of hours a day and they're really good at it. So it can be really annoying if you do die, but if you don't get into any fights and if you don't fail and kind of do trial and error, you're never going to improve your aim or get better at the game. If you're unfamiliar with dropping, you can actually relinquish your drop to another teammate, aka give a teammate the leader to drop your team instead of doing it yourself. A lot of new players obviously don't know the locations on the map, they don't know what the best locations are, they don't know which locations have the best loot, and they just genuinely just don't know what to do. This is basically good because you can give your drop master position to the team and they can do it for you. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't have to do it yourself. On the map at the start of the game, there's a marker for the supply ship's final drop point, which basically allows you to time drop in on the ship perfectly. The ship has high tier loot, but there will be high competition and enemies contesting it, but it's good practice to loot quick and get into fights fast. If you do want to quickly practice getting loot fast and getting into those engagements really quickly, dropping on the ship can actually be beneficial, especially because the loot is high tier like I mentioned before. So if you come out alive, you can come out with some great starting loot. Next up is using supply bins. Now they usually don't have high levels of loot really. Most of the loot in supply bins aren't really great, but you can sometimes find things like wingmans inside, or you can find decent levels of armor like purple armor, so you can use them to your advantage and it can be still pretty decent to give you a good level of beginner loot at the start of the game. Listen out for loot ticks. Basically the loot ticks are those things that you open when you open Apex packs. They're those kind of crates, the robots that move, but you can actually open them in game because they're in the game as well. Usually you can hear them or spot the light that they give off, because they give off kind of like an LED light and make a sound, and if you're lucky to actually get them, they give really good quality loot in game. Like we mentioned before with the hit markers and the damage values, obviously the items are appropriately color coded as well in the same fashion, so make sure you learn the loot colors. This isn't really going to be a problem for you though if you've played any other games in the Battle Royale genre. For an example, specifically Fortnite, it uses the exact same order of worst to best, and if you've played World of Warcraft, the colour system in that is basically the same as well, even though it's not a Battle Royale. Obviously, from worst to best, it goes grey, blue, purple and gold, so obviously with gold being the best and grey items being the worst. Now, if you see your teammate who's downed and he's about to get finished by a finishing move by the enemy, fear not, because you can actually cancel these finishing moves. If your knock squad mate's basically about to be finished, aka the punching finisher, you can cancel it by shooting at them or punching the enemy who's doing the finishing move to basically cancel their attack. Plus, it's an opportunity that's really easy to get the drop on them if they're not looking at you. The next few tips are actually economical tips or saving money. Now, what I'd recommend is purchasing free skins with crafting metals. Although it's really slow, you don't need to spend any money because these crafting metals are earned every few levels at a really slow rate, which can be spent on skins for legends or weapons. I like this system because obviously the game's published by EA and they're kind of infamous for microtransactions, but it kind of allows the newer players and people who aren't really rich to actually get stuff for free. Now, it does take a long time to get these, but it just means that you won't have to spend too much money. Now, alternatively, another tip is before buying skins or store items, just get to the max level. At max level, which is 100, you can actually earn up to 45 free Apex packs every few levels. Get all of these first before spending any money on skins, because you could actually get really good skins from these free packs, because the Apex packs that you earn from leveling are exactly the same to the ones that you buy. Now, a few tips on terms of sound and hearing things in the game. Footsteps and ziplines, as well as landing during fights, have extremely low levels of sound, so using these different methods to reach an enemy and get the drop on them, or to silently escape from fights, is really going to work out in your favour because they don't actually have much sound to them. Take advantage of the fall damage in game because there's literally no fall damage. You can drop and jump from any high place and not get punished for it due to no fall damage. So grappling up to really high positions as Pathfinder for an example, or dropping using the balloons on a really niche position that you think you won't be able to get to alternatively, is also useful because when you get down from it, you're not going to lose any health. Now the next one is big because when you get your aiming dialed in, you need to also practice your movement. When running and moving, try to practice slide jumping literally everywhere and anytime you can. This makes you not only faster than simply sprinting, but also harder to hit if you're being watched. Remember, this game is all about movement. It's a first-person shooter, very similar to Call of Duty, the Advanced Warfare versions and the Infinite Warfare versions where you have a lot of movement. It's a fast-paced FPS. We're not talking PUBG where we're camping in a bush. You've got to really practice moving in this game. Now, another tip on downed enemies, we talked about don't focus on them earlier. Downed enemies show that they still have squad members alive. Use this to your advantage to use it for info, because if a downed enemy hasn't instantly died, this means that members of their squad are out there somewhere, whether it's close by or whether they're split. You can also keep them alive, so when you finish the others, it'll tell you when you downed a whole squad, although I'm pretty sure when you finish all the squad it says this anyway. Next up is weapon combos and your loadout. You want to look into popular weapon combos and what's basically in right now. Right now, the most powerful weapon seems to be the wingman, especially with a skull piercer attachment, and accompanying that with a red dot sight or something like the legendary scope, which lets you see through the smoke grenades. But streamers seem to be taking the R99 SMG, which I haven't really had much success with, and it has a really small round drum, but they're taking this with the longbow DMR or the Kraber, so this can be useful if you get all the attachments for it, but just make sure you're researching and seeing what people are using, and use popular loadouts to stay on top of the meta. Next up is stick with your squad. Don't be that guy who goes solo. Every single game we play, we have always a third random person we're matched with who runs off the drop or loot by himself, and then he just leaves the game when he gets downed. Don't be that guy. Stick with your squad and communicate. Next up is squad composition. Now this isn't really something you have to focus on too much, because most of the time if you're really good as a legend you can kind of just play them with anything, but don't always only play your best legend. Try and practice a few and utilize them for different situations. For an example, Lifeline the healer is literally always useful in any team composition, and it's good to just support the squad. Try to pick a team composition that works. Damage and support. One of the last tips I'm going to give you is loot sharing. Now, Everyone has a limited inventory, sharing loot means high tier loot won't be left behind and all the squad can have a chance in a fight. Make sure armour, health kits and weapons are evenly shared so your squad is useful. Remember, if some of your squad doesn't have very good weapons or loot or armour and health to kind of accompany themselves in a fight, then your squad's going to be a huge disadvantage to someone that does. The last tip I'm going to give you is utilise your environment to your advantage. Try to stick around areas with good cover such as rocks or small hiding spots or holes in cliffs so you can run for cover when in a fight. Climbing on roofs behind cover can also be really useful, and using Lifeline's grapple hook to get to high positions is also extremely beneficial. Thanks for watching guys, make sure to subscribe and smash that like button if this tips video is useful. If I get a lot more likes in this video, I'll continue doing guides and tutorials on Apex Legends. I just want to make sure that you guys like this type of content. If you're into Apex and you want me to carry on doing it, then make sure to smash that like button and make sure to drop a comment below letting me know. Also leave a comment below which Apex Legends tip videos or videos you want to see from me, what kind of gameplay. Usually I do use a face cam when I'm streaming or making videos, but these tip videos are a lot easier to kind of get the information out when they're more scripted and structured. So make sure you smash the like button, leave a comment and subscribe, and if you do all that, you'll be in the chance to enter a giveaway. But you need to follow the link in the comments and description below because this is a legit giveaway. You need to follow all the steps to enter and a winner will be picked at the end of the month. We're giving away Dirt 3, the Steam game, this month, and if that actually is an opportunity you want to take, then make sure to click that link. Thanks for watching guys, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.